Good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is you're listening from, and welcome to episode 4 of Dugout Talk. My name is Stephen Gossman,
I'm Cameron Lingle.
and we're here today just to talk to you some more about a lot of free agent signings that have taken place, as well as covering free agents that are still out there and potentially where some good landing spots could be for them and where some good fits could be for some of these guys who are still on the table. First of all, as always, let's start with our day in history. Cam, kick us off with that.
Well, today in 1941, the Cleveland Indians made Bob Feller the highest paid pitcher in baseball history. They offered him a contract worth $30,000, which beat, I believe, the previous record was somewhere around 27,500 that a couple different guys had gotten. But yeah, today, 1941, Bob Feller, highest paid pitcher in baseball history.
With 30,000.
With 30,000, yes.
As it's mind-boggling that 30,000 at that time was considered a
Yeah,
high contract. I'm pretty sure the league minimum wage or the league minimum contract you can sign now is just north of 500,000,
yeah.
if I remember correctly. So my day in history is actually this happened 100 years ago today in 1921. Federal U.S. Supreme Court Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis became the first official commissioner of Major League Baseball, signing a 7-year, $350,000 contract. Landis would go on to be the commissioner of Major League Baseball until his passing in 1944.
Hmm.
He was highly regarded for his handling of the Black Sox scandal in
Mm-hmm.
1919 by banning for life the 8 players that were involved, one of those including Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 100 years ago today, hard to believe that it was that long ago.
Yeah. Crazy.
Let's go ahead and jump in. There was some free agent news that happened yesterday. The Michael Brantley drama. Let's start with that. So, when we were on the show yesterday, there were rumors swirling that the Toronto Blue Jays were in agreement with Brantley. Things had looked like they were being locked up. There was a deal on the table for him to be a Blue Jay, and then all of a sudden, as quickly as that news was reported, it was refuted. And next thing we knew, in about a few hours, he was back with the Houston Astros on a 2-year,
Mm-hmm.
$32 million deal. So I got to ask this: is this actually official? Um, is this we're not going to see that? Oh, wait a minute, he's not an Astro or anything like that. Are we sure that it's done?
Sure hope so. There was, we heard that he had signed with the Blue Jays reportedly just moments after we quit recording yesterday. So that was a little upsetting, but seeing as the fact that he ended up going back to the Astros, it's kind of nice that we ended up not discovering that until afterwards because it would have been a little crazy to go in and how does this signing affect the Blue Jays long term? How is it going to hurt the Astros long term? Thankfully, we didn't have to go into any of that.
Right. So, and we were looking on Twitter yesterday, and Ken Rosenthal had reported it too. So, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the first to report it was Hazel May. She's a reporter for the Toronto newspaper in the city. She was the first to report it. So a lot of big name reporters yesterday were coming out with this story, and I think that's what makes it so dramatic is the fact that um, it really looked like this was a thing, but then we found out quickly that it actually wasn't official, and then it just fell through. I think the thing that's more surprising is how quickly he signed with the Astros, though, yesterday. It
Mm-hmm.
was about less than 3 hours, I think, after the Blue Jays news broke that we found out he was an Astro. Um, and this is ultimately the same contract he signed back in 2018 or 2019. I'm sorry, the 2 years, 32 million. How do you feel? How do you feel about this signing for on the Astros end?
Well, it at least keeps some resemblance of their World Series team. Losing Springer is already going to be a big enough blow. Springer is one of the better, well, if not one of the top five best outfielders that you can probably snag right now. And to lose a guy like him, he was a leadoff hitter for them, constantly putting them up into early leads. I feel like it was probably close to 10 times a year. It felt like that he would begin a game with a leadoff home run. If you lose that instant production, it can really hurt the Astros. So for them to at least be able to retain a guy who's going to is going to hit for a high average, he's going to hit around 300 if not higher. He's going to hit maybe 10 to 25 home runs, somewhere in that general vicinity, and even provide a little bit of defense here and there. I think it's going to be. I think that the Astros definitely made a good decision bringing at least Brantley back.
I agree. I think this keeps them relevant in the West still.
Yeah,
Not by any means, I don't think they're the best team in that division anymore, but at least retaining Brantley and bringing him back provides consistency in that offense. Get this, I'm looking at his stat line right now, and in Brantley's 12 years in the major leagues, he has a total of 573 strikeouts.
hmm.
The most strikeouts he's ever recorded in a single season was 76 back in 2011, and
Jeez.
he only played 114 games that year.
Well, my
Um, so he's a big contact guy. He
mm-hmm.
has a good eye at the plate. He doesn't strike out a ton, and he hits for high average. Like you said, he's a career 297 hitter. He's hit 299 at least each of the last 4 seasons between the Indians and the Astros. Um, but yeah, I think this doesn't make the Astros the best team in the West, but at least retaining him keeps them relevant in that division. And assuming that Brantley stays healthy all year, he hasn't had injury issues since 2006, since 2015. So
Yeah,
this is assuming that things are that he's going to be healthy for the majority of these 2 years. So I like it. I like
yeah.
what they did here. And then Jason Castro,
Mm-hmm.
he's back in Houston. He actually broke in with the Astros back in 2010. He was with them from 2010 to 2016 as their starting catcher. He had hopped around he was with the Twins from 2017 to 2019, and then he spent parts of last season between the Angels and the Padres. He was with San Diego for their postseason run, and now he's back in Houston. How do you feel? How do you feel about this signing?
Jason Castro is not a bad guy. I know he hasn't been an all-star caliber catcher for multiple years. I believe 2013 or 14 was his last all-star appearance. Um,
2013, yeah.
yep. And he's a veteran presence. He's been in Houston before. Um, he's been around winning teams. I think he could be not so much an on-field presence, but I think he's going to be a big locker room presence. I think he's going to be like he's going to be almost kind of what almost like what David Ross was for the Cubs his final season. Not to say that this is going to be Jason Castro's final season, but he's just one of those catchers that just seems to be able to work with everybody. I think he's going to get a lot of the pitching staff, and overall, I think he's going to be a very positive piece for them. Maybe not offensively, but he's still got good defense, and he's a great presence in the locker room.
Yeah, this does feel like one of those just kind of a veteran presence in the clubhouse signings, like you said, with the Cubs and David Ross in his
Mm-hmm.
final years. Castro signed a 2-year, $7 million deal with the team. So yeah, I think again, this is and before they signed Castro, Martin Maldonado and Garrett Stubbs were the two
Mm-hmm.
catchers slotted in for Houston. So this could be a three catcher rotation kind of thing. I'm not sure if Castro is going to be their everyday starter. Um, I would imagine that Maldonado probably is going to be the primary guy that they use,
Yeah.
considering that Castro's a lefty. But who knows? And it's possible that Garrett Stubbs might start the year in AAA too. Um, but yeah, this is again, like you said, this is one of those free agent signings where this is more, I think, veteran catcher just being on the team, trying to be a good clubhouse presence for the younger guys. This doesn't necessarily improve Houston. It just kind of puts them in line with The AL West is still up for grabs, and
Mm-hmm.
they could still do it. And if they get good production from Castro, it just adds a boost to that contract.
Absolutely.
So moving on from Houston, the Minnesota Twins did a little signing yesterday. Jay Happ is their new starting pitcher. He signed a 1 year, $8 million deal with the club yesterday. He is entering his age 38 season. He'll be 39 in October. What are your thoughts on this signing there?
I've seen J Hap over the course of the last 2.5 years. He needs to reinvent himself. Needs to continue to reinvent himself. Once he lost command, not maybe not so much command, but once he lost the life on his fastballs, he became essentially just a pitching machine. Like he was serving up home runs left and right. It was unfortunate having to watch him every fifth day go out there on the mound for the Yankees, and it just felt like you were going to lose whatever game he was going to play. Um, really, really down year in 2019, and I do have to admit it was unfortunate to see the team kind of maybe sort of do him a little dirty this past season. If he would have reached a certain amount of innings, that would have triggered an option for the 2021 season that would have paid him something like $17 million. Um, from the team's perspective, I understand why you wouldn't want to pay a guy something like that, being that he got, you know, 9 million less in the free agent market. Um, for the Twins, he's entering a bigger stadium, a slightly better pitcher's park than what Yankee Stadium in the AL East is. He's going to face slightly lesser opponents. You know, the Indians are going to enter their rebuild. The Tigers are knee deep in rebuild. So he's really only got the White Sox as a team that he's going to have to deal with. Um, the Royals, we're not sure what we're going to get from the Royals. They had a couple flashes where they looked like maybe they could hit 500 this season. Um, but he's got fewer opponents that he has to deal with. He's got fewer offensive opposition. He could be maybe a 4 or 5 guy for the Twins, provide 15, 20 starts. I think he could be sneaky good, but I'm not optimistic.
So looking at the Twins rotation before the Hap signing, they only had 4 starters.
Mm-hmm.
Led by the staff will be led by Jose Barrios, we assume. Randy Dobnak, Kenta Maeda, and Michael Pineda were the other starters in that rotation. So Hap, I could see being a middle of the rotation guy for them. He, like I mentioned, he is 38 coming into this season, so he is a little bit on the older side. He didn't have a bad year for them though in a small sample size of games for the Yankees. He was a 2-2 with a 3.47 ERA in
Mm-hmm.
9 starts, so it wasn't like. And yeah, you're right. 2019 was atrocious for him,
Oh yeah,
but last year it seemed like he may have started finding a groove, but again, it
he
was a
did.
very small sample size.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the Yankees didn't really give him a chance to kind of prove himself out there. And whether it was because they didn't want to pay him those incentives for this year or not, which I think it's safe to assume that probably did
Yeah,
play a part
play a
considering
part.
how 2019 went for them. Um, yeah, and Target Field does play more of a pitcher as a pitcher's park. It's a huge right field is massive out there. I think it's got the tallest wall of all the major league stadiums. If not the tallest, it's very close behind Pittsburgh's 21-foot high wall. So I think on paper this looks good for the Twins. It gives them a little boost in that rotation. So considering that they probably aren't going to get Jake Odorizzi back, and it sounds like Homer Bailey they probably moved on from him too. So I think it gives them a slight improvement in the rotation, but again, it's going to depend on which J Hap do they get. Are they going to get the
Mm-hmm.
2019 Hap, or are they going to get the 2018 Hap, where when he got traded to the Yankees, he was 7-0 with a
Yeah,
2.69 ERA?
yeah.
There's Hap kind of has two sides of him. He's either really good
Yeah.
and really dominant, or he's kind of just giving up fly ball home runs, giving up hard contact every time he goes out. It's really hit or miss with him, it feels like. And with him being up in age, um, you're not, we're just not sure what J Hap is going to show up.
Yeah.
So moving on from Hap, the Kansas City Royals also did something, speaking of them. Wade Davis, who was their star reliever during their 2014 and 2015 World Series runs, is back with the team on a minor league deal. Um, and it's hard to imagine Davis not getting on the opening day roster. Um, for the Royals going into the season. As I was taking a look at their team last year, and they still have a really young pitching core as far as the bullpen goes, especially. I don't think there's really a ton of locked in spots for guys in that bullpen. How do you feel about this deal?
I just like you, I expect that Wade Davis will probably make the opening day roster. Um, it's crazy to look back and think about that bullpen that the Royals had there in the mid 2010s. You know, you get Wade Davis just leading that staff after Greg Holland left. But yeah, I it could be like I don't think he's as bad of a pitcher as his recent stats might show. I think he played for the Cubs briefly. I'm not sure how long he was there. I also spent some time with the Rockies. You know, those are two places that if you're not smart, offense can kind of come up and bite you. So moving back to Kansas City, moving back to the AL Central, like I just mentioned, a relatively weak AL Central. I think that maybe he doesn't take the closing job for the Royals, but I think he could very easily slot in as a middle relief guy and add a veteran presence in that bullpen that at this point is very much needed.
Yes, I agree with that. And to note on the Cubs and Rockies notes, he was with Chicago in 2017.
Mm,
That was his only year there, and that was by trade, I believe,
yeah,
that he went there. And then he spent the last 3 seasons with the Rockies, and to say the least, 2019 and 2020 sucked for
yeah,
him. He was designated for assignment early last season in the shortened year, and then in 2019 he recorded an 8.65 ERA across 50 games. So this is this is kind of a redemption contract in my eyes for Davis. I
hmm
think I think again he should make the opening day roster. I don't see how he couldn't at this point. And the team does have Greg Holland again. Holland went back to the Royals last year, and he had a really good year for a small sample size.
hmm
Across 28 games, he had a 1.91 ERA. So maybe as far as the closing role goes, it's probably up for grabs between Davis and Holland, though I think
hmm
Holland probably gets the job. And even if Holland doesn't do that well in the closer's role, they can just slot Davis in there because
yep,
Davis has closing experience. He led the league in 2018 with 43 saves,
hmm
or he led the National League, that is.
oh, okay,
Um, but with the Royals, in 2015, he took over the closer's role late in the year after Greg Holland got injured and got 17 saves there. His ERA was 0.94
yeah,
that season. So, and I think pitching at Coors Field definitely has hurt his numbers in recent years. I don't think he's the guy who recorded an ERA north of 20 last year in five
yeah,
games. I don't believe that. I think going to Kansas City, being in some familiar waters, is going to
hmm
help him in the long run. And
yep,
I think he'll be a great leadership presence for that young Royals team. And I think Kansas City could be sneaky good this year.
yeah,
They on paper, I mean, the most of what they have is just the prospects that they've been drafting and signing over
hmm
the last few years. And I still think the Twins and White Sox are the teams in that division to beat.
yes,
But now that the Indians are clearly in sell mode and they're not really expected to do a whole lot in the Central, I think the Royals could jump in and surprise a lot of people this year and adding Wade Davis to the bullpen, even though it's on a minor league deal and it's no guarantee he's going to make the major league club. But
Hmm.
assuming he does make it, he adds a boost to that bullpen. He has an improvement to that bullpen, and I think that this does make Kansas City just a little bit better. It might get them a few more wins than what preseason projections might say when they come out.
Hmm. I agree.
So that's the news from the free agent side of things that came out in the last 24 hours. Let's go ahead and dig in to some of these bigger name free agents though that are still on the market. Cam, why don't you go ahead and take us away with this?
All right. Well, I did some scouring of the free agent heap, and I picked together 10 guys that I think we should look at, give a little bit of our opinions on, and discuss maybe some good potential landing spots. Now, a little disclosure before we get started here. Um, this has nothing to do with contracts. I'm not going to. I'll briefly talk about the type of contract that player might sign, but I'm not looking at current payroll. I'm not looking at current budgets, and I'm not looking at current player needs. This is basically just this guy could fit for this team for this reason. And with that said and out of the way, let's get going with a guy who probably the number one prospect, and sorry, the number one free agent um, left among the hitters, which would be the great catcher JT Real Muto. Now, looking over, there's obviously always teams that need a catcher, but the difference between a catcher and a JT Real Muto is huge. And the three teams that I think could really use a guy like JT Real Muto has to be the Phillies because he's got that loyalty to them. They really need him for their pitching staff, and I think that's probably the number one fit. But don't sleep on a team like the Braves because he would be better than anything they really have right now as far as catchers. And if they can't bring back a guy like Marcelo Zuna, maybe they can go out and sort of lightly supplement his offense with a guy like JT while also getting extremely better defensively at catcher. All they had last year was Travis d'Arnaud, and mind you, Travis d'Arnaud had a good year, but he's older than JT Realmuto. I think he would be better fit as the backup for JT Realmuto, or maybe even you could turn Travis d'Arnaud into a trade piece. Um, the third team that I think could really use a guy like JT Realmuto is San Diego. And the reason why is because he would be the final piece to create a perfect storm in Southern California. The Padres have the pitching staff. Now all they need is the catcher to ring them all in and lead them. All they had last year, they traded a whole bunch of pieces around. They went out, they got catchers, they traded catchers. Um, I mean, if you're okay with having a guy like Austin Nola leading your pitching staff, by all means, go ahead. But if you could get a guy like JT Realmuto, I know he's going to be expensive and he's going to want probably close to 5 or 6 years, but it's hard to say no to a catcher that's going to give you 20 home runs, 75 RBIs, hit 280, and have top five defense in the league. So those are the three options. I'm not sure what your opinions are, Steven, but those are the three biggest options I think for JT.
Those are really good points that you bring up, and obviously the Phillies are the number one.
Mm,
If anyone is going out there, it's the Phillies, and the Phillies absolutely need them, like you said, because the only other catcher they have right now is Andrew Knapp.
mm-hmm,
Sure, there are other catchers, I guess, that are available if you can't land JT, but they should not be resorting to that. It's JT needs to be their number one guy. And again, like it was said on the show yesterday, fans should be encouraged because teammates are vouching for him. Dombrowski's met with him personally over the offseason to try and get deals done. I think Sam Lepresti, who we worked with back at Real Sport, said something about 5 years, 110 was on the table right now
Yeah.
for Real Muto in Philadelphia. Atlanta is also intriguing, and MLB.com came out with a piece on why the Braves could swoop in and get Real Muto. And right now, yes, Travis d'Arnaud is the guy, and he has reinvented himself over the last few seasons. So his trade value is up right now. And the Braves could get, if they're able to lure Real Muto away from Philly, they could use d'Arnaud as trade bait and get a good return package for him, most likely. Right now, William Contreras and Alex Jackson are the backup catchers that they have. So, yeah, in a way, Real Muto would be an improvement in Atlanta.
Mhm.
Darno's not a bad option by any means,
No, no, not
but
at all.
it also feels like he's a ticking time bomb, and his body could give out on him again at any minute. Because if you remember a few years ago, he was even considering retirement after
Yeah.
his Tommy John surgery. So um, I like the idea of him maybe going to the Braves. Um, I know he'd be an enemy in Philly if that was the case. That
Hmm.
would
Yep.
quickly the city would turn on him.
Oh yeah.
That would not be the most ideal thing, but if he really is going after money and the Braves can offer more than the Phillies do,
Yeah.
he might do it. As for the Padres, I'm a little skeptical on San Diego. I think because the Padres seem to be going after extending Fernando Tatis Jr.
Hmm.
And it feels like whatever money they have on the table still, they're going to put the majority of that into Tatis. So I don't think they could give Real Muto the years and the money exactly, although he would be an instant improvement at the position over Austin Nola and Victor Caratini. But that's not a bad catching duo you have there with those two guys. And I think Nola also provides a boost in that lineup that you don't see from catchers a lot. Caratini can as well. So, on the offensive side of things in San Diego, the catching situation isn't all that awful. Granted, those guys have both been backup players majority of their careers anyway. But having those two in the same lineup and getting consistent playing time, I think can work out for the team. And you got to remember too, Hugh Darvish is on the Padres, and he and Caratini were teammates in Chicago. So I got to think that those two will probably be the catching duo or the pitcher catcher combo that are used every fifth or sixth day, whatever San Diego decides to do. So as much on paper as Real Muto would look good in San Diego, I think that one is less likely to happen. It's
Yeah.
probably either going to be the Phillies or the Braves that would go in, but Atlanta does make sense. He would be an instant improvement at that position.
But man, wouldn't it be a perfect storm to see him just be like the final screw in the Death Star? It seems
San,
like.
that would be mind-boggling if San Diego found a way to land him,
Yeah.
because it would just make
Not
you
that.
think how much money do they actually have.
Yeah. Yeah. Not that it is gonna happen. Not that there's even a chance that it would happen. But it would be crazy to see it happen.
Yeah.
All right, moving on here. Um, Probably the most offensive player that we have available, Marcell Ozuna. He is an outfielder coming off a great season with the Braves. Uh, and prior to that, had some really good success uh, with the Cardinals on and off success. But he's a power bat. He's got a sneaky good average, I believe, somewhere around 280 or his career numbers. Um, I don't personally believe he's as bad of a fielder as people make him out to be. I don't have any of his defensive numbers in front of me, but I have seen him play in person. He's got a cannon of an arm, and I think that kind of like a Giancarlo Stanton, he's serviceable. You can put him out there. You're not going to worry all that much about him making a gaff or a goof or something like that in the field. Um, as far as my three options for him to sign with, I believe the Braves have to be number one on that list because they're already a potential World Series team. If they could get Ozuna back, even if even if it's without the uh, National League designated hitter, even without the NLDH, I think he still brings a lot of pop, brings a lot of runs, and could, like I said, be a potentially serviceable outfielder. Uh, if you don't want him to be an outfielder, I think a team like the Twins could go and snag him to kind of just slide into the role that Nelson Cruz left when he entered free agency. He's seemingly 100 years younger than Cruz. I'm not sure how old Cruz is. He's got to be at least 40, if not 39. So you're younger. He's going to cost less. I know Cruz made quite a bit of money this past season. Um, and besides maybe a few less home runs and maybe a slightly lower average, he could replicate what Cruz was for that offense, um, and really be a big piece for a Twins team who's just trying to advance past the first round in the playoffs. As far as the third option, and this is kind of like what I did with the JT Padres, I think the Yankees personally could be a good landing spot for a guy like Ozuna, because he would add tremendous depth for an outfield that seemingly every year finds a way to lose all of their guys for extended periods of time. He could be a DH. I know they have a few guys who fit the role of DH, but they're going to have to play the field sometimes. And I think that he could help make that offense. Um, he could bring some added stability to that offense, I believe.
So I agree on the Braves, and we talked about it yesterday as well. The Braves, I think, are the number one destination for him. And I'm looking at his fielding stats right now, and in Ozuna's 8 seasons, he's a 986 career fielder. So it's not bad. The
No,
numbers aren't
no.
as bad, I think, as we even made it out to be yesterday. But again, he is still in a small sample size last year. He had a 975 fielding percentage last year. So it's it's still legit that there is concern surrounding him being in the field full time. But the numbers aren't as bad as even we made them out to be yesterday. I do think the Braves, I agree with that. The Twins are interesting because the thing is with Nelson Cruz is he's gotten better with age,
Mm-hmm.
which you rarely ever see that. And he is 39 this year. So I think if the Twins don't get Nelson Cruz back, Ozuna would be a great fit, and they could easily slot him into the DH role primarily. Um, so I think the Twins are a good option as well if they want to improve that offense and try to bring in that guy who can help them get past the first round. Which, by the way, it's been 19 years since the Twins won a playoff series,
Yeah,
let alone a playoff
playoff
game.
game. Yeah,
Um, so I think Ozuna would be a good improvement in that way. And plus, they lost Eddie Rosario, and it
mm-hmm.
doesn't look like they're going to get him back. So
No,
that would provide them some. That would provide them an upgrade in the lineup, assuming that maybe they don't bring Nelson Cruz back.
yeah.
As for the Yankees, I'm going to counter you with this.
Ooh,
Um, Considering the Blue Jays failed to get Michael Brantley, I could if
yeah,
Ozuna's willing to take a cheap deal, I could see the Blue Jays swooping in and getting Ozuna.
yeah. I'm not sure how much they offered. I forget how much the offer for Brantley was, but maybe somewhere in that ballpark could potentially lure him there.
It was a 2-year deal. I think it was 22 million that the Blue Jays offered him.
So
Um,
maybe closer to what Brantley made then could probably lure
yeah,
him there.
yeah. If Ozuna's willing to take a cheaper deal, and something around what Brantley was offered, I could easily see Toronto going in and getting Ozuna because
Yeah.
Ozuna can easily fill that DH role. They had
Oh yeah.
Brantley. One of the projected lineups I saw yesterday when the Brantley news was going around, they had Brantley slated as the DH.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me think that Ozuna could be an option there. I don't know if Toronto is looking for a left-handed hitter though now, since they got Springer.
Yeah.
So that could be part of it as well. But again, I think the Blue Jays would be more likely than the Yankees necessarily to land him, but also the Braves are the number one team,
Oh
and
yeah, by far.
If it's not the Braves, it's the Twins.
Yep. All right. Up next, we've got an aging catcher. Spent his entire career with the Cardinals. That is one Yadi Molina. Um, he's got two options and a third. No one's really going to want to hear. Um, his first and I think his primary goal is to return to the Cardinals. He's got that loyalty. They've got their loyalty to him. He spent, like I said, his entire career there. He's won World Series with them. He's put up all the catcher numbers. He's probably the owner of all the all-time catching records for St. Louis. And not only that, but he's still overall a pretty good catcher. He's got the clutch factor. He can still field. He can still hit. You can't just pencil him in as an easy out. And you can't just pencil him in as a guy who's just going to show up, give you a little defense, and then go 0 for 4 in the batter's box. Um, so the Cardinals have to be the number one priority. He has to be their number one priority. Um, the next team that not only makes sense, but I have heard rumors earlier in the winter would be the New York Yankees. There were some rumors that came out that he was potentially seeking a multi-year deal, maybe even upwards of 3 years. And I believe the Yankees were willing to do that for him. Obviously, those talks have cooled off as they were trying to re-sign DJ LeMahieu, kind of making him their one and only priority. Um, it'll be it'll be interesting to see if those talks heat back up between Yachty and the Yankees. But he would be a great teacher for a guy like Gary Sanchez. He'd be a great teacher for a guy like Kyle Higashioka. Higashioka has still quite a bit to learn offensively. Sanchez still has quite a bit to learn defensively. So he could potentially be almost like a second coach, like catching coach for the Yankees. And not only that, but hell, he can still play pretty well too. Um, but I have heard that if he receives no good offers, he is prepared to retire. And I think that that's probably his third option. I don't know how many teams are looking for him. I've only heard rumors from the Yankees and the Cardinals. So I think that if he doesn't receive an offer that he likes, he is prepared to hang them up.
Yeah, I can't picture him in a uniform that isn't St. Louis
Yeah,
Cardinals. I can't.
absolutely.
And Molina he still has game. You're absolutely right about that. I know the bat has dipped a little bit
Hmm.
over the years, but even then, he hasn't hit below 260.
Yeah.
Actually, he hasn't hit below 260 since 2006, which for a catcher that's a big deal,
Oh yeah.
especially in today's game because catchers are more focused on defense and running a
Hmm.
pitching staff to begin with. So it's kind of one of those things. I'm surprised that the Cardinals haven't come to terms with Molina yet.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that Molina feels like he still has a couple years in him because I think he does, even
Oh
though
yeah.
I'm
Easily.
sure that he's aging. The decline is kind of showing at least with the bat, but he still has a glove on him. He can still throw runners out from his knees. Like he's in great shape
Hmm.
physically. Again, I can't picture him anywhere outside of St. Louis. And the thing with the Yankees, I think he'd be a great fit in pinstripes. I
Hmm.
guess if there is another team out there, it's probably the Yankees I could see him with. Um, but you got to wonder how regular of a player he would be in the
Yeah.
Bronx because it still feels like the Yankees are set on Gary Sanchez,
Hmm.
even though Sanchez has been uh, to put it bluntly, he sucked.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
really
You could
inconsistent
say.
with the bat. He just seems lazy back there sometimes.
Hmm.
And I think Molina he might be that veteran presence that could help Sanchez kind of develop himself as a perennial catcher because Sanchez has that ability. He could easily be the best catcher in baseball if he puts his mind to it, but he just hasn't shown that yet. And Yachty could be a good upgrade at that position if he's willing to kind of go a three-way route with Sanchez and Higashioka.
Hmm.
But I see retirement more on the horizon for Molina if
Yeah.
the Cardinals can't meet his offer, which, by the way, seems kind of criminal of the Cardinals not to be working with
Yeah.
Molina more. Um,
Yeah.
because there's no doubt, like, no one's ever going to wear uniform number 4 ever again in St.
No,
Louis.
not in
That
St.
number is getting retired probably the day he announces he's retiring.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that it should be St. Louis, and if it's not St. Louis, yeah, Molina probably is going. It should retire.
Yes.
He'll be 39. Yeah, he'll be
Hmm.
30. He'll be 39 in July. So, and that's a good career. 17
Yeah.
years, and he's a borderline Hall of Famer. I don't know if he's like a first ballot Hall of Famer necessarily, but he's a borderline Hall of Famer. So, I mean, he's really got nothing to lose at this point. If he wants to hang it up, no one's going to be upset with him. But ideally, we'd like to see the Cardinals take a shot and try to actually bring him in.
Yeah. If it's, the only way that I see him playing for a team not named St. Louis is if he gets absolutely blown away by a deal. He would
Right.
have to get absolutely blown away. Well, jumping into our third player here, a guy who's played shortstop early in his career, played a little second base. Uh, Most commonly known as the guy who replaced Derek Jeter. That would be one Didi Gregorius. Coming off what Didi had hoped would be a brand building season in Philadelphia, a value building season, ended up being not so much, mostly due to the shortened season. Um, as far as his options go, I think he's going to look for a team that's probably going to be a competitor. Um, he's probably going to look for a team that can guarantee him a starting role. And as far as that goes, I could see him returning to the Phillies because he's essentially better than any other shortstops that they have available to them right now. Besides maybe Gene Shigura, and I'm not sure how great Gene would be able to slot back in a shortstop. Um, he'd already been there a year. He's got a great repertoire with Joe Girardi from their times in New York. So I could see him returning there on another 1 year value building contract to try to make sure he gets that one last, multi-year deal. Another team I could see him going to is the Reds. The Reds would be a great fit for him because, I believe they had Freddie Galvis last season. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yep. They
Yep.
have Freddie Galvis.
Freddie Galvis. And if I'm not mistaken, he's also a free agent this season. I'm not entirely sure about that. But, I mean, if you had to pick between Freddie Galvis and Didi Gregorius, you would probably pick Didi Gregorius. He's better than any other options immediately available to the Reds. And he's cheap. He's only going to want a 1 year contract. I think he's just going to want to go somewhere that he can play every day, build his brand. And I think he could do that in Cincinnati. I also think he could do that with the Angels. The Angels, having just lost Andrelton Simmons, they have a hole at shortstop. And, Didi, he's a left-handed hitter. He would fit great in that lineup, kind of sit in between or in front of or behind a Pujols or a Trout or an Aaron, or, a Rendon, and could kind of supplement. He's a still a pretty good offensive shortstop, not to mention his glove and his arm, which is always flashy. He could be a really sneaky good option for an Angels team that just likes to sign players to 1 year contracts right now. I think those are probably the three best landing spots for a guy like Didi. Your thoughts?
Yeah. A quick note on Freddie Galvis. He is a free agent
Okay.
still. And by the way, Galvis is actually really durable.
Oh yeah.
So I'm a little surprised that nobody's gone after and signed him yet. He played 162 games in 2017 and 2018. Both
Mm-hmm.
seasons he did that. He played 47 for the Reds last year. The bat's declining, but
But he's
he's
not
still
bad.
no, he's not bad at all.
Yeah.
He's still a good option.
Hmm.
Um, I like him going back to the Phillies. I can see potentially maybe another 1 year deal coming for him just so he can boost some of that value back. He hit 284 in a small sample size last year, actually in all 60 games. He played all 60 games and hit
Hmm.
284. So the bat is there. I can definitely see the Phillies maybe making a push for him to if he's willing to take another 1 year deal. I really like Cincinnati,
Mm.
and he actually debuted with the Reds.
Yeah, yeah, he started there. I
Yeah,
believe as a third baseman or as a second baseman.
yeah,
Maybe
he
even an
was.
outfielder. I
He
forget.
he was a shortstop when he debuted
Oh, okay.
in
Okay.
2012. He was Zach Cozart's backup, and then he got traded to the Diamondbacks in
Hmm.
the off season. I I think Cincinnati would be a great fit, honestly, and the Reds again. They don't have to pay big bucks for him. They can if he's willing to take a 1 or 2 year deal, maybe even a 3 year deal,
Hmm.
but just give him a little less annually.
Hmm.
And Didi has shown he has power with the bat
Oh
since
yeah.
2016. He's hit here. Let me do the math real quick. 72, 88. He's hit 98 home runs since 2016,
Yeah.
which is very respectable, especially for a shortstop,
Yeah.
as
For yep.
that's not known as a power position. And Didi can play anywhere in the infield too. He has limited experience at third. He's got some experience at second, um, so he's versatile in that way. And I think if the Reds again believe that they are a team that can compete in the Central, which on paper there is no reason they can't, Didi would provide them that boost offensively at shortstop and be that upgrade that they're looking for. And it'd be a good way for him to just reunite with his club, with the team that he broke in with and played his first eight
Hmm.
games of his career with. So I really like Cincinnati. And then as far as the Angels go, um, to be honest with you, I think the Angels are set on the infield. And David Fletcher, who is a fan favorite out there, and someone that Joe Madden absolutely loves and adores, is most likely going to be the opening day shortstop or second baseman wherever they slot him. Maybe even third baseman if they decide to put Rendon at DH. But I think the Angels probably make the least amount of sense unless if Luis Rengifo is not in the picture for them anymore, because it sounds like David Fletcher is part of the future in Anaheim. So it would just depend on how they feel about Luis Rengifo. If they feel like he's not really the guy, then yes, I can absolutely see Didi going to Anaheim. But I think
Hmm.
I really like Cincinnati in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Jumping into our last hitter for today is another shortstop. He's got a little bit of third base in his history. Played for the White Sox. Played for the Athletics recently. That would be one Marcus Semien. As far as Marcus Semien goes, his his value going into free agency was very high. I think a lot of people thought that he would kind of get like a sneaky good deal for himself. But as this crazy post COVID off season has proven, markets are dried up uh, fairly fairly well. So he's still a free agent. Um, I think if all falls apart, I could see him returning to the Athletics on a 1 year deal. He's got some loyalty to them. He broke out with them. The AL is a relatively weak AL as far as the postseason teams go. You don't have any one team that you can look at and say that you have to get past that team like you can in the NL with teams like the Dodgers, teams like the Braves, and teams like the Padres. Now you don't have a team in the AL that you say like that's the big bad wolf. That is the team that we have to beat. So he could return to the A's. They made the postseason last season, um, and he's been a pretty good performer. He can hit some home runs, driving some RBIs. He's a good average, one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball. So that's probably the number one landing spot. Another landing spot that I could see on a 1 year deal would be Philadelphia if they fail to bring back Didi Gregorius and they still want a shortstop who's capable of putting up some offense. I think that he could be a great fit there. I think that he would essentially just slide into wherever Didi was in the lineup. He could just slide in and, if not replicate, beat Didi Gregorius' offensive numbers and probably be a better shortstop defensively as well. And then obviously the Angels, for the same reasons that Didi would want to go there, obviously the same reasons that you have for maybe he wouldn't go there. I still think that the Angels could be a sneaky landing spot for a guy just looking to keep his value high, keep his brand well stocked, and then enter free agency again tomorrow or next season with a little more certainty.
Yeah, Oakland seems to be a good target. By the way, Simeon was third in the AL MVP race in 2019.
Yeah.
33 homers, 92 RBI. He hit 285 in 162 games. Last year was a considerable down year, but again, COVID shortened season. You got to figure his numbers would have been a lot better in a full season. And I think this is one of those things that depends on the kind of deal he's looking for. If Oakland is serious about him, I think the A's could probably they'd probably be willing to put some more money into him than maybe other guys, since he's a homegrown product. And like you said, he broke out with the A's. That's where he really made his name known. Before he was in the White Sox system as a backup shortstop behind Alexei Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to Oakland and he proved himself, and he hit at least 10 home runs every year except for last season with the team. So I like Oakland's chances. I think the A's make a lot of sense, but I'm going to counter you on two of those, on the Phillies and the Angels. The Dodgers are still looking for improvement in the middle infield. And with Justin Turner being a free agent, they need a third baseman. And there is a part of me that feels like if Semien wants money, the Dodgers could do that easily. And he could also play second base too,
Yeah.
if necessary, because Kike Hernandez is also a free agent. So I could easily see the Dodgers swooping in. That's actually who I picked to sign him this offseason, was the
Okay.
Dodgers. Another wild card team, and I think this one is a little less likely, but it makes sense at the same time. The Diamondbacks are another team if he's willing to take a cheap deal, because uh, Arizona's not doing much right now. Really, the only thing they could do is a trade. The biggest free agent they've signed this offseason is Ryan Buchter to a minor league deal. He's a relief pitcher. But if Semien is okay with taking a cheap 1 or 2 year deal, the Diamondbacks make sense too, because they're still a little, they're not sure if they're going to have Ketel Marte play second base or center field. And if they want Marte to play center, Semien is an upgrade at second base. And he can also play third and shortstop, although shortstop's locked with Nick Ahmed, but he could play third and second with time. So I think the Dodgers and Diamondbacks are probably more likely than the Phillies and Angels. I do like Oakland's chances though of signing him, because
Yeah.
he's he's homegrown. He's technically homegrown talent there, and if the A's don't bring back Simeon, they have a hole at short, and I don't think Chad
Yep.
Pinder is a guy they see as like an everyday shortstop for them.
Yeah.
He'd be their next option.
All right. Yeah, I agree with that. Those could very well be tremendous landing spots for him. Jumping over into some pitchers now. We'll start back at the top of the market with Trevor Bauer. Coming off a Cy Young winning season, his very first Cy Young winning season. Trevor Bauer, I think people kind of consider him to be maybe better than he actually is. People look at him like, I don't think he's Garrett Cole good. I don't think he is Jacob DeGrom good, but he is probably just a tier or two down from them. With that said, Um, I have a couple big name targets. I have the Yankees and the Dodgers. Those would be tremendous spots for him to go. Um, Great brand building cities. I know that he's big into his personal brand. Um, I know that he's all about self marketing and he's all for players being themselves. And I think that those two cities would give him a great opportunity to kind of take advantage of the big market area and really extend and build up his personal brand. Not to mention the fact that he would instantly make either of those two rotations incredibly better. I know that he's had in college he had some less than ideal relationships with Garrett Cole, but both of them have said as recently as this past season that they were kids. They both had different ideas of how to play the game, how to approach your pitching, how to approach your daily routine. They both kind of had different mindsets, and that kind of rubbed the wrong way when they were younger. But I believe they're both professionals now. They're both grown men, and I think they would care a lot less about how the other person carries themselves. And not only that, but he would immediately become the Yankees' number two starter, and it's hard to find a team better suited to pay a guy a dump truck load of money than the Yankees or Dodgers. Now, um, a sneaky team that could be potentially interested in Trevor Bauer's talent could be Toronto. They've they've proven that they're willing to go big money and a lot of years for a guy right around 30 with George Springer. And I understand that Springer's 6 year, $150 million contract is the biggest ever handed out by the Blue Jays, but it's hard to pass up when you look at the rotation they have. He would slot in number one. He'd be the ace, the guy. He would be the face of Canada, essentially, as far as baseball goes. He would be the biggest guy they've had probably since Roger Clemens, maybe.
Roy Halladay,
Roy
maybe.
Halladay. Roy Halladay. um, one of them. So he would instantly become one of the best pitchers in Blue Jays history without even throwing a pitch. Your thoughts on Trevor Bauer?
Yeah, the Yankees and Dodgers do make a lot of sense because both teams can throw a lot of money at Bauer, and he would instantly be in the top two of the rotation. Um, if he does go to the Yankees, it would say a lot about Garrett Cole, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. And I think when I look at the Bauer Cole situation, I kind of think of when David Price went to the Boston Red Sox. I
Yeah.
know when he was with the Rays, that was kind of during the time the Red Sox and Rays were getting into fights every year, it felt like. And David Ortiz and David Price, it was known that they did not get along, but Price went to Boston in Ortiz's final year and they put the drama aside and said, "Hey, we're teammates. It's a
Yep.
game of baseball. It's a competitive game. Stuff happens, you know." So, and I think it just showed how big of men both guys were, that they were able to
Yeah.
put their differences aside and win the Red Sox the AL East that year.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think Bauer to the Yankees, as long as it is true that Cole and Bauer don't have this beef with each other still, and they can actually get along in the same clubhouse, why not? Why don't the Yankees try and offer him some money?
Yep.
The Dodgers make sense too. He'd be an improvement to the rotation behind Clayton Kershaw and
Mm-hmm.
Walker Bueller.
Yep.
I guess in that case in LA, he might not be the number two, but I guess it just depends on how they feel about Bueller.
I think it
Uh,
depends more about how they feel about Kershaw. I think Bueller's probably going to be their number one opening day guy, and
okay.
you could almost take some pressure off Kershaw. You know, I know he's getting up in his 30s. You can almost take some pressure off Kershaw, slot him in at number three. That's less responsibility and less pressure that he has to put on himself by slotting in a Trevor Bauer at number two, or You could put Kershaw at 2 and Bauer at 3 to kind of offset. You could go righty, lefty, righty in a series. So they could go either way.
And Kershaw has had some injury issues over the last few years
Mm-hmm.
too, so it probably, I think you're right. Bauer would likely be 2, maybe 3. I guess it
Yeah,
just depends on what Dave
either
Roberts.
one.
Yeah, either
Yep.
one would work. As for Toronto, I did ask this to our group chat
Yep.
yesterday if this puts Toronto in the mix, and if Bauer is serious about 1-year deals, he makes sense for the Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Toronto is a little less likely now, and as great of an addition as he would be to that young rotation, I don't think the Blue Jays feel like he's a necessary need for them.
Yeah.
So I would say Yankees and Dodgers make the most sense. I would throw the Braves in there as a possible option too,
Yeah.
because he'd also be an instant improvement to their young rotation. So, and then obviously the Angels, they can't forget about them. They're probably
Mm-hmm.
just as much
Yep.
in the mix too.
Yeah. There's a lot of places that a guy like Trevor Bauer could go, and
And the
he's
thing and
needed.
the thing about Bauer is he just has filthy stuff.
Oh yeah.
His slider is disgusting to hitters. He's got a really good changeup. He doesn't have a fastball really, but his changeup and slider make up for that. So
Yeah. All right, moving on. We're gonna look at a couple guys who at one time were considered very good, but in recent years have fallen off. The first one we're gonna look at is Chris Archer, the former Rays and Pirates pitcher. Got traded for, I would consider, one of the 3 worst trades in baseball history, being traded for not only Tyler Glass now, but also one of my favorite players, Austin Meadows. He is coming off some less than ideal seasons in Pittsburgh. I won't sugarcoat it. He was garbage in Pittsburgh for the most part. Typically had an ERA well north of 4, usually well north of 5. But I think that that's probably due to just the change of scenery. I think he could really use a change of scenery. I don't look at Pittsburgh as that pitcher's haven it once was, back when they used to be able to take guys like Francisco Liriano, AJ Burnett, dudes who were has-beens, and they just turned them into near aces. I don't think they're that anymore. So I think Chris Archer could potentially bounce back, maybe on a short contract. Maybe a team like the Angels want to go out and grab him. He could be a decent innings eater for them. I know he gets a lot of strikeouts. That could help them. Just someone to maybe rebound. He's only going to want a 1-year contract from them. I know that that's what the Angels like to do now. Another team I could see him going to are the Giants. Now the Giants, formerly known as AT&T Park, very spacious, very pitcher friendly. Pitchers can make a lot of mistakes, and not have them come back to bite. So I think he could be a potential bounce back player there. And if the Yankees want to go out and grab a guy who is kind of like a Corey Kluber minus an injury, they could always go and do that. Maybe Archer can provide them a little bit of depth until Luis Severino comes back from his injury. And maybe Davy Garcia, maybe they want to try him back in AAA again, to start the year, and he could always provide a little bit of depth just in case. So those are my 3 biggest landing spots for Chris Archer.
you said Angels, Yankees, and who was the other team?
Giants, San Francisco.
Giants. So Archer, yeah, and 2019 was not a good year for him. He has a career 3.86 ERA, 5.19 ERA in 2019, but he had the shoulder injury, I
Mm-hmm.
believe is what it was, and it wiped out his 2020 campaign. Archer is going to be 33 in September,
Yep.
and there's a part of me that feels like Archer is not going to get a major league contract. And
No. No.
I say that because he needs to prove his value again,
Mm-hmm.
because his time in Pittsburgh was just that bad. And if he does get a major league contract, to me, the Giants would be the one to offer it. And I think San Francisco would be a great place for him to boost his value back up, because
Hmm.
that is a pitcher's ballpark. It's a big ballpark, so he's not going to give up all those home runs.
Yeah.
He gave up 25 homers in 2019 with Pittsburgh, and he's a fly ball pitcher too.
Yeah.
He's given up 150 career homers in his 8 seasons. So going to San Francisco might give him that confidence back. And I think that's the most realistic place I could see him
Yeah.
going. If the Angels want to go cheap, Archer's an option for them. The Yankees, I'm not too inclined on. I don't think it's going to happen in New York.
No, no, but it would be a good fit.
It would be a good fit, but I feel like the Giants are probably the best option for him if
Yeah.
they're willing to give him a major league deal.
Yeah, I think any contract he's going to sign is going to be a minor league deal with an invite to spring training, and he'll be able to prove himself there if he
Yes,
can prove himself.
I agree with that.
All right, moving on. Another guy who has fallen out of the limelight in recent years, longtime Seattle Mariner, didn't get an opportunity to play with the Braves this past season. That would be Felix Hernandez. King Felix, guy who used to be considered one of the 2 or 3 best pitchers in baseball. Recently, not so much. Not even really considered a good pitcher in baseball anymore. But I think he could return to the Braves, do another 1-year deal, just so he can actually get an opportunity to pitch. I believe he opted out of last season.
Yeah, he did.
So the opportunity to do what he originally came to Atlanta to do, and showcase his talent to maybe make one final push at some redemption before he retires, that could be worthwhile. Another team that I could see him going to is back to Seattle. I know Seattle's not in any way, shape, or form competing, but maybe they want to kind of go the route that they did with Ichiro and the route that they did with Ken Griffey Jr. and just bring him back, give him a nice little farewell tour, and really just kind of ignore if he happens to be less than ideal on the mound. And if he wants to, he could probably go overseas and pitch. I'm sure there are plenty of teams that uh, maybe Japan, maybe Korea would love to have a guy who once upon a time was this, fabled MLB pitcher. He could go overseas, pitch for a year or two, really, really reinvent himself, and maybe come back and give it one final go. Not a whole lot of options. Those are really about the only 3 that I was able to come up with. But I think it's intriguing because it is still King Felix. I have seen flashes as recently as 2019 when he was a lot of bad starts that year. But I did see just a glimpse of what could bounce back.
Yeah, I think the Braves would be a good fit if they want to actually give him a chance to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Felix is only going to be 35 at the beginning of April. So, and I know that he kind of looks like he's literally just falling off the face of the earth, and he's had some injury problems himself since 2016. He hasn't made more than 30 starts since then. He made 29 in 2018, but um, I I think his body may be wearing down on him a little bit, and I don't know how much longer he has. I would love to see him go back to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know you brought it up. Ken Griffey Jr. and
Yep.
Ichiro, they went back to Seattle their final years of playing. I think the fan base would give him a
Oh yeah.
very warm welcome. He was so loved out there, and
I mean, how many players have a section of a stadium, specifically for them? Like I could think of Judge and I could think of Felix. Like that's really about it.
that's really about it. The King's Court,
Yeah.
it he would be, and I think he would attract a lot more fans to
Oh
the
yeah.
ballpark just as well
Absolutely.
whenever fans are allowed back in stadiums to go watch games. Um, I would love to see him go to Seattle. I think it would be a nice deal. You
Absolutely.
know, if he's saying if he plans to retire at the end of the year, or
Mm-hmm.
if he plans to retire soon, why
Yeah.
not? You know, I think I get why they let him walk in 2019.
Oh, absolutely.
I understand why they did, but this is one of the best pitchers you've ever had in franchise history, probably since
Mm-hmm.
Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
And it would, I mean, I don't really care where the guy is. Randy wasn't even all that great.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't that great at the end, but the Diamondbacks gave him a chance.
Yep.
I know he didn't finish his career out there, but they gave him a
No.
chance to
Yep.
kind of come back, even though they knew what they were getting into. Mariners
Mm-hmm.
should do the same thing, even if it's just on a 1 year deal. They should do the same thing if he's not gonna pitch much longer, especially. But or I guess the overseas thing could work, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah, that's I wanted to have three options. I mean, the M's and the Braves are really the only two options he has, but I
Yeah,
get if
yeah,
he is considering pitching for more than the next 3 or 4 seasons, if he wants to increase his longevity, he could always go out there and give it a shot.
absolutely,
But
absolutely.
I thought that it would be nice to add a guy who was undoubtedly at the forefront of the post 116 win Mariners. Sneak peek for tomorrow there. Um, I did think it would be nice to add a guy like that. Moving
Absolutely.
on, though, moving on, um, we're going to jump into two relief pitchers, both of which have seen time with the White Sox. The first of which is Alex Colomé. Alex Colomé, I'm not sure why he's still a free agent. He's a good pitcher. He's relatively affordable. Could go and solidify a bullpen in just about any spot you put him. Uh, a couple options that I see there, most prominently would be Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia is a team that had team bullpen ERA, I believe, north of 8 last season, and you really don't want to repeat that. And I
Oh,
think the first thing you want to do is grab a guy who has a history of having decent seasons, and Alex Colomé is just that. Um, he could slide right in, middle relief, even a setup spot if you wanted to, and could provide some good innings, great innings. A couple other teams that I had looked at, the Yankees. The Yankees always love their bullpen guys. He would fit right in, uh, really easy. Could almost kind of take the role left behind by Tommy Kahnle, who just left in free agency. Um, really about it there. The White Sox are another team. Could go to the White Sox. I know that they just signed Liam Hendricks to a big contract, but Alex Colomé, the White Sox, you always need pitching. Alex Colomé can provide you some good bullpen, and I think the South Side could benefit from him.
Yankees, White Sox, and the other
Phillies.
team, the Phillies. Yeah, those are all good. Those are all good fits. I am surprised that Colomé is still on the market too.
Mm-hmm.
He had a .81 ERA last year in
Yeah,
21 games. I think he had some injuries last
might have.
season, and that could be what's holding him back from getting a contract right now. But I pretty much any team, and this could go either way. Any team that needs bullpen improvement, Colomé is the guy that would be a good fit just about anywhere. He has a lot of closing. He has a lot of closing experience.
Mm-hmm.
He led the American League in
Yeah.
2017 with 47 saves, 138 career saves overall. The what is the Yankees closing situation look like right now? I'm not too familiar with that.
They still have Chapman. I
Okay.
believe. I believe that he's probably the closer until he decides not to close anymore.
Okay.
Um, so that's pretty much set in stone. They're pretty much set on Zach Britton being their setup guy, kind of like the eighth inning. But other than that, like it's pretty open. It's pretty open
Yeah.
prior to that.
Okay. Yeah, if the Yankees want to improve the bullpen, sure, I could
Yeah.
easily see that being the case. The White Sox are a maybe now just because they signed Liam Hendricks. I think
Hmm.
that signing was pretty much saying they're moving on from Colome. The Phillies would be a good fit as well, just to give some improvement to the bullpen. I know they already
Hmm.
signed Archie Bradley,
Yep.
so that definitely has some potential there. Another team I'll throw in there, the Diamondbacks. If
Yeah.
Colome wants is okay with like a cheap 1 year deal. Arizona's had some closer struggles over the years, so they could be a good fit as well. I think actually this offseason I predicted that Colome would sign with the Diamondbacks. I'm not too certain on that anymore, but that was who I picked for them to
Does
at least get.
does Arizona have do they have a closer like set in stone?
No, they don't have anyone set in stone
Okay.
right
So
now,
yeah,
so
that slides right into the next guy I was going to discuss was David Robertson. I know he's getting up there in age, coming off a fairly big injury that prevented him from basically performing anything in a Phillies uniform. Um, I don't see them going back to him because of how old he is now. I think the Phillies are probably just going to move on to find some younger guys. And the best fit that I had for David Robertson was Arizona to go and if not be the closer there, be the setup guy. He provides some veteran depth that Arizona could definitely benefit from. Um, it's a laid back area. Uh, Obviously, they're not really competing. I know David he's won a ring before. He won a ring in 2009, so it's not like he has that itch to go and win his first World Series. He's already got one. I think he would benefit from just going to a place he can just do his stuff from the bullpen, be the closer, be the guy, and could really help out Arizona in that remark. Another team that I was looking at, still in the NL West, would be the Dodgers, mainly just because they do enjoy getting um, pitchers in their relief pitchers in their 30s, cheap deals. They're fairly good at reinventing those pitchers. I think David Robertson could go and be a great fit there. I know they already, I forget who they just signed last month, I believe. Um, Another guy in his 30s, early 30s, that they plan to essentially just turn around and turn into a good relief pitcher. So the Dodgers are another team to look at. And on top of them is potentially the Braves. I know the Braves lost a couple guys in free agency this winter. I think he could go to Atlanta, provide some good veteran depth in the bullpen role, um, and really just kind of be a rock. I think he could be a rock anywhere he goes.
I think because Robertson hasn't pitched in 2 years, he's probably going to get a minor league deal too, with
Yes.
a spring
Yes.
training invite. Unless if again like the Archer situation, if teams are willing to go and actually pay him, sure.
No, yeah, it'll probably be a minor league deal with an invite.
And I think if that's the case, the Diamondbacks are probably going to be more willing to jump on that train, which
Yes.
I don't think it'd be a bad deal at all. Um, I think Robertson would be a great presence in that bullpen, just because the team is kind of in limbo right now. They on paper they don't look like a competitive team, but I've watched them play with this group of players that they have, and they can easily be over a 500 club.
Oh yeah.
They can do it. We saw it in 2019. I know last
Mm-hmm.
year was disastrous for them, but even towards the end, they showed signs of they could still be a good club, and
Yes.
Robertson could be a nice piece for them. So I could easily see that. I could see the Dodgers too. Not that LA needs him, but if they just want to flex on teams, because it feels like
Yeah.
everything the Dodgers do right now, they're just doing it to flex.
Yeah.
Um, so I could see the Dodgers. I could see the Braves too, just as kind of a bolt. Like they have Mark Melanson right now, I'm pretty sure, as their closer. So Robertson would be the setup guy
Yep.
out there, which that wouldn't be a bad signing either. But again,
No.
I think
Yeah.
it's just going to be, he's going to get a minor league deal most likely
Oh
with a
yeah.
spring training invite. I don't think
Yep.
he's done yet. I think he still
No.
has some
Yes.
stuff
Yep.
left in the tank as long as injuries don't derail him from here on.
Mm-hmm.
But just the fact that he hasn't pitched in 2 years is like, he's got to build that value back up, and he's got to show that he still has it in him to
Mm-hmm.
actually compete at this level.
Correct.
Great show.
Yeah.
This is
Absolutely.
a little longer today. We realize that, but tomorrow is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
We got a podcast idea from one of our early subscribers, and we're gonna do a little something different tomorrow involving the Seattle Mariners. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. And be sure to give us your thoughts on Twitter as far as like free agents go, because there are definitely a lot of free agents out there that we didn't cover today. But the season, go ahead.
If you have any other, literally almost any suggestions, like feel free to let us know.
Absolutely.
Right now we're looking to everything we do. We want it to be what you guys want to hear, what you guys eventually want to see. So any ideas, any suggestions, feel free to let us know. We will more than likely incorporate them in some way.
Absolutely. And maybe we'll do it. We can guarantee that much. We will do it at some point. I know starting next week we're gonna start covering more as spring training starts getting closer. We're gonna be looking at teams individually starting next week, but that's not to say that we can always incorporate some other things in there as we go along. With that said, thank you for listening to us today. Again, I know it was a longer episode than we've had this week, but be sure to follow us on our social media pages. Twitter, we're at Dugout Talk 1. Facebook page is Dugout Talk. YouTube channel, Dugout Talk. With that said, I'm Stephen Gossman.
I am Cameron Lingle.
And we will see you again tomorrow.
See you guys.